Now, within the US, the AR-15 dominates. It's a well-proven combat rifle. But outside of the US, there are many combat rifles that have a ton of time in various foreign militaries that are well regarded. Today, we're going to be talking about one of the ones that I don't think gets enough recognition, and that is going to be the Steyr Aug, the A3M1. Now, there are multiple variants of the AUG, and the AUG has served in multiple militaries, whether it be the Austrian or the Australian, same country in case you didn't know. We, of course, have New Zealand, Ireland, and even better than that, we've talked to a lot of soldiers, approximately 400 of them, on their professional combat experiences with this particular rifle. Now, we have done a video on the AUG previously, but since that video, there have been a lot of products that have come out. The ecosystem of product support for the Steyr Aug is now at a really good place. This is due to the fact that so many countries have adopted it, as well as the US market for the Steyr Aug has been expanding. So I hope you guys will enjoy this video as we talk about a very venerable, very reliable, and very accurate combat rifle, the Steyr Aug, with some very cool upgrades. Stay tuned. Now, before we get into it, we of course have to thank all the sponsors who keep our content free. This is awesome for you guys, so give them a lot of love. We of course have Primary Arms. All of their optics are amazing. They can get anything that you could possibly want. Give them a lot of love. Tell them, you know what? I love Primary Arms, and maybe they'll give you something. You never know. Guys, if you're looking for some really cool stuff, you can't forget Henry Repeating Arms. Shot a lot of guns. Throughout all that time of shooting guns, I've really come to appreciate a little bit of American heritage. And sometimes, you know what, shooting a lever action just feels better than shooting anything else because I feel like I'm in the Wild West again. And I played a lot of Red Dead Redemption 2, so that's important to me. Guys, go check out henrythumb.com. We can't say a lot about it other than to say, go check it out. A lot of secrets there. Of course, Mantis, if you're looking to become a better shooter, we recommend dry fire. You can see Connor here shooting the Mantis. Look a little retarded. That is exactly what we want. You won't look retarded shooting it like Connor, but you're going to look pretty damn good. Go check out Mantis. And of course, all ammunition is provided for by AAC, primarily shooting 70 grain TSX and 77 grain OTMs. Let's go ahead, let's continue, and let's talk about the very interesting Steyr Aug. So, the Steyr Aug has served in many militaries. It's a short-stroke gas-operated weapon. One of the best things about the Aug is due to the fact that it's a bullpup, being the trigger and trigger guard in front of the magazine in the action. This means that you can have a much longer barrel. This gives you more velocity and, in many cases, greater range, not specifically due to accuracy, but simply because of the speed of the projectile. The Steyr Aug is actually a bit smaller than a Mark 18, which is saying a lot. The Mark 18 is an AR-15 with a 10.3 barrel. Being that this has a 60-inch barrel, there are definitely some benefits to a bullpup weapon. Now, there are drawbacks as well, but the first thing we're going to do is see what the effective accuracy of this weapon is. To be clear, we're only using a 4X LCAN Spectre. This isn't like a precision optic or anything like that, but we're still going to test it and see how accurate this little guy is. Looks like we're getting pretty consistent velocities of about 2684 on average, so that's looking pretty good. Standard deviation's looking really good on this ammunition. We're using AAC 77 grain, and then we'll use 70 grain TSX. The barrel is a 1 in 8 twist, so this will do fairly well on stabilizing the grain weight of projectiles that we have. Now, question is, Sawyer, am I good enough?
I believe, Mike. I believe.
Holy crap, that was a great group. That was great. That was really good. That was really good. Okay, let's go see how tight it is.
That was first try. Believing goes a long way.
Yo, sometimes it feels like I'm a good shooter, and that feels good since this is all that I do. So if I'm bad at it, that just kind of means I'm bad at life in general. Which, granted, it should be noted the Steyr Aug is also very easy to shoot from the prone, from unsupported and odd positions. There's a lot to do about having very low recoil. You know, we've gotten very used to the AR-15, quick trigger, etc. The AUG isn't like that. It kind of takes things in a different direction. But as a infantryman's rifle, I consider the AUG to be extremely good at what it is. So here's a group right here. That looks pretty dang good for a service rifle. We're gonna go ahead and measure it out, and we'll be back in 1 second. Okay, so this is great news. We have a group size of 1.185 MOA. You guys saw the way that was the first group. That's exceptional. I consider that extremely good accuracy. And to be clear, we're using a Heresy Designs barrel right here, but we've had the same results from a Steyr Aug barrel as well. The difference between the two being that the Steyr Aug is a cold hammer forged, while as the Heresy Design is a 4150 CMV, which is the same barrel that the M4 uses. But 1.1 MOA, that's wonderful. Great. But the question is, what about the practical accuracy? A lot of the Australian, same country, New Zealand, Irish soldiers have told us that, hey, this is about good to about 400 meters. And I think that it absolutely will do 400 meters, no problem, but I think it'll actually do much further. So let's take this out for a practical accuracy test. Let's shoot from 300 all the way up to 700, and let's see what this gun is actually capable of. Maybe even 800. What do you think, Sawyer?
I think we got 800. I believe, Mike.
What do you think I can throw a football over the mountains?
I think with a little bit more trend, you're there.
All right, we have targets at 350, 550, and 600. So we're gonna go ahead and work our way up and see how difficult the shots are. Okay, so the LCAN Spectre matched up perfectly at about 350. I held the 3 mark on the LCAN Spectre, which is calibrated for 5.56 there. Good impacts. Now, it is calibrated from M855. Nonetheless, with 77 grain, it worked pretty good. So we'll go ahead and we'll reset the camera, go up to 550, see how that shot looks. All right, guys, we're at 550 now. Okay, that was pretty easy. I pulled that 3rd shot, but 4th I made it up no problem. So 550 was absolutely no problem. I was holding at the 5 on this guy. With the 77 grain, it does have a better ballistic coefficient compared to M855, so it does tend to fly a little bit better, which kind of makes sense given the kind of bullet drop not quite matching up on the LCAN. Let's go ahead and walk it out to 600, and I think this is going to be pretty good out to 800, so let's really push the AUG today. Let's take it up to 600, boys. Oh, hey guys, do you like ammo? Today's sponsor is Ammo Squared. Now we have to thank them because you know what? They keep content free, and increasingly certain rules from a certain large company make it very hard to simply talk about the people who keep this content free. So we're gonna do our absolute best. Hope you guys will stay with us. Well, here's the thing. Did you know that Ammo Squared has a climate controlled facility? Did you know that they have everything you could possibly want to? Now, we're not saying to go there. We're just saying we love them a lot. And a reason we love them too is because we've actually visited their facilities. Everything about it is real. And listen, they're looking to help you manage your freedom seeds. That's why you should go and say, hey, Ammo Squared, I love you very much. Can I get some more info? And they have over 120,000 patriotic members. Hey, they're built for the prepared guys. All right, now we're at 600. Okay, well, that wasn't bad at all. Let's go ahead and let's take it out to 700, see what we got. All right, we're now at 700. Take a look right out there, targets out there. Don't worry, the bus is outside of the line of fire. So, let's take some shots at 700. All right, that's actually really, really easy. So 700, no problem for the AUG. I guess we're going to 800 now, man?
Yeah, might as well.
Okay.
Wait, can you do 700 shots standing? First key?
Oh man, that is so hard. Okay, let's walk out to 800. All right, we're now shooting at 800. All the way out there if you want to point the camera there, Sawyer. So let's see what it does. At 830 at our elevation, the round will be going transonic, and trans is never good. So in this case, it will cause the round to begin to destabilize, funny enough. So past about 800, 5.56 is not the round, but we're simply proving a point that the AUG is a wonderful service weapon. All right, we got a few impacts there at 800. That's far past the service range of this particular weapon, and of most weapons that kind of falls into SPR territory. But suffice to say, for an infantry rifle, this Steyr Aug is performing wonderfully. So at distance, doing excellent. Out to about 700, I'm confident. About 800, it gets a little dicey, especially as the gun's getting the heat up. We've been shooting this gun a ton. It's got, 17 mags through it so far?
Dude, at least.
So let's go ahead, let's do some quick shooting and get more autistic. First things first, let's take a look at length. So we have two AR-15 variants down here, and we have our AUG. So we'll make this guy as small as we can here. The AUG is still about the same size as the Mark 18, just perfectly. However, that being said, this isn't how I shoot a Mark 18. I typically have it clicked out to here. That's more of a length of pull thing, but just to illustrate, the Steyr Aug is a very compact package. When we talk about the Mark 18, we talk about the smallest governmentally used AR-15 variant, a 10.3-inch AR-15. And even with all that, the AUG is still the same size, but sporting a 16.5-inch barrel. So here's the General Defense with a 14.5-inch barrel. So obviously longer. It's about the length that you'd have from the AUG with the suppressor on there. And even if we collapse it all the way, we're still a good deal longer, despite the fact that the AUG has a longer barrel. Now there are some issues there. The AUG does have a lot of its weight towards the rear, which can make certain firing positions and shooting uncomfortable. In addition to that, the gun is somewhat louder due to the fact, at the shooter's ear, due to the fact that you have the action right here next to your ear and cheek. So you do hear a lot more than you hear with an AR-15. In addition, although the AUG is very soft shooting, the AR-15 as a whole is a softer shooting platform. So let's go ahead, let's try both of them side by side. A little shooting comparison here, and let's see how they look. We'll start with the good old AUG right here. Pretty soft shooting overall. Let's check the good old Mark 18 right here. Try that one more time. You know, funny enough, worked for me, baby. Funny enough, the Mark 18 does have more recoil than the AUG, so I'm gonna have to eat my words a little bit there. Let's try the Daniel Defense right here. 14.5-inch barrel. Let's see how this one feels recoil-wise. You know, AUG's pretty soft shooting, actually. I have to eat my words a little bit there. That definitely, yeah, it feels about like the 14.5. So pretty neat. Let's go ahead. Let's do some drills here with this guy and give you guys a breakdown on it. So first things first, the AUG does not have nearly as nice a trigger as an AR-15. We do have the Arid trigger pack in here, which helps a lot in keeping the trigger from being just out of control, dumb, and heavy. So let's go ahead, let's do some speed shooting here, and let's see how fast it is. Now, to be clear, with a really good AR-15 on a really good day, I can do about a little less than a second on a bill drill. We'll see how we do here today. 149, pretty good. Solid grouping right there. My first shot was at 6.6. I think I actually can get closer to a second on this guy. Let's try pushing the Steyr Aug a little bit, boys.
You gotta at least be faster than its MOA.
118. Oh, dang. Okay, I got one out, but it was a really tight group. I think it was that first shot. Yeah, I think we can get this pretty fast here. 113. That's feeling pretty good. So pretty close to a second. I definitely have to try a little bit. The trigger's not nearly as good. We'll do one more here. And I'm out. Well, this is a perfect opportunity for Sendomac. Think I can get sub-second?
I think you can get sub-second.
Ain't no way.
I don't know, but as I said, like, what, its MOA is 1.1, right? You gotta get at least under 1.1.
Okay, 115. So I'm getting about 113 to 118-ish. It's pretty dang fast, and my split time is 0.15. First shot at 0.39. So if I got closer to what I got in the AR-15, I could get 0.11. Okay. Sorry guys, I have an itch. 1.08. Let's go. Okay, better than the MOA. We'll take it. That's cool. All right, we're gonna go one on each, working that transitionary drill. We'll start up on target. We'll go from there. Good. 105. Feels good. Good shooting, Mike. All right, let's do a Mozambique, 2 to the chest, 1 to the head at very close range, otherwise known as the Marine Corps failure drop drill. Oh, bad. Woo! 0.79. 2 to the chest, 1 to the head. That first one was doo-doo, but this was great. I'll take it. Okay. Man. You know, I love the AUG. I always have. The trigger's always held it back, but man, with these upgrades, it is running pretty damn good. All right, let's try something else. Let's do 2 on paper, and then we'll do 1 on far steel. So steel's about 100 right there. She good. Guys, there are a couple different ways to do reloads on the AUG, so we're going to talk about all of them. Now, there are 2 different versions of the AUG. You have the NATO AUG, and then you have the European AUG. So we have the European version right here, which takes your standard AUG mags. The NATO version can take P mags, all that kind of stuff, so some people might want to do that. Historically, I think that they run better with the AUG specific mags. We can talk about that more in the autistic breakdown. But let's go over some of the different ways of doing the reload. So probably the easiest way is simply to use the bolt release on it. So I'm going to fire 2 rounds. Okay, I'm in bolt lock. So at that point, all you need to do is hit the mag release right here, drop that mag, grasp my next one. As soon as it's in, my thumb just slides right up here, drops that bolt, and I can fire right over again. Another way is some guys on their AUG, it doesn't have a bolt hold open, whether it be NATO or something like that. So we'll kind of have to mime through it a little bit, but I have my round in there. It fires. Gun goes click. I'm simply going to lock the charging handle back and up, just like an HK. Mag in. And I can run it just like an MP5. So the point is we have a lot of different ways of working the reload off a Steyr Aug. I prefer the simple paddle release. I think that's the easiest. But just understand, in many ways, to skin a cat. The easiest thing is that the AUG is very easy to reload in the shoulder because all that weight is right back there. So it's very easy to get your mag in, to go dry, hit that mag out, all while keeping this gun right in my shoulder. That makes for a very easy reload. So we've done a lot of shooting, done a little bit of talking, but let's go full autism. Let's go to the black screen room. Let's get it done. Now we've done a lot of shooting. Let's do a lot of talking as we break it down autistic style right here in the basement and talk about what is so interesting about the Steyr Aug. Now, previously we've done a video on the Steyr Aug. If you've been a follower for a while, and we were fairly impressed with it then. We kind of had some mixed feelings about the AUG, even in 2019, just due to some of the shortcomings of the weapon system in general. Now, we're at a full 6 years later, and this is the exact same AUG, albeit with some upgrades. So what has changed? Well, since 2019, some things have become very much so more accessible, namely being 3D printing and rapid prototyping, as well as 5-axis CNC machines are very easy to get your hands on now. Because of this, we've seen an explosion in the small accessory market for a variety of weapons. But one that's really come up is going to be the AUG. Now, the reason for that is due to the amount of militaries that have their hands on the AUG, from Austria to Australia, same country, to New Zealand, Ireland, to just name a few. The AUG is a very well-performing, well-vetted, and excellently made combat rifle. So because of that, because so many countries are fielding the AUG, you've seen that a lot of these individuals that have combat time with the AUG had done a lot to upgrade it, as well as American companies as well. Now, why the AUG? Why upgrade the AUG? Out of every bullpup out there, we have the Hellion, we have the Tavor. Why the AUG? Well, compared to a lot of those bullpups, the AUG is perhaps one of the longest serving as well as the most successful bullpup rifles ever fielded. Now, you could say that like things like the AUG and the Hellion also qualify. However, they're not adopted by as nearly many countries as the AUG is. Neither have they served for nearly as long as the Steyr Aug is. So let's take a quick moment. Let's go back in time. Let's talk about how the AUG got its humble beginnings. When you take a look at Austria and their service rifle, they were using a variety of weapons up until about the 70s, namely the FNFAL. Just like many other countries, the FNFAL was the right arm of the free world. It was arming many of those European nations. As a lot of countries realized that the 308 that was being used in many battle rifles was somewhat overpowered for modern combat, just due to the fact that you didn't need to make as long as shots, and rather a larger amount of ammo being carried on your person in the case of 5.56 made a lot more sense in combat. So you saw a lot of these countries begin to turn either to domestically made 5.56 rifles or to export rifles, whether it be the M16 variants, AR-180s, etc., etc. And as the Austrians decided, well, we're pretty sure we can make a gosh darn good rifle. How would they say that in German, Sawyer? That was awful. We'll have ChatGPT come up with that one. So the Austrians came up with a very iconic and very different rifle. Now, we have a bullpup. The question is, what is a bullpup? If you're not familiar with that term, it's pretty simple. So on a rifle, we typically have your magazine forward of the trigger. Now in this case, you have the action and the magazine that is going to be rear of the trigger. So if we compare this to, let's say turn around just to see my army of guns right here. All right, we'll take a Bren 2 right here. So if we take a Bren 2, you see you have grip and you have mag in front. Now this works really well, but if you can see right here, the Bren 2 is still slightly longer, even with the stock all the way collapsed compared to the AUG. And this Bren has a 11-inch barrel. The Steyr Aug right here has a 16.3-inch barrel. So you can see how much of a difference that's going to make for a standard infantry combat rifle. Go back to your home, little buddy. We won't talk about you probably ever again. So you have the Steyr Aug fielded. It originally as the STG-77. Later, many export models were made, and of course, many countries ended up adopting it in many different variants, from Australia with a slightly different EF-88 to a whole bunch of variants out there. But in its core, the guts are the same, being the Steyr Aug. Let's go ahead, let's talk about this weapon. Let's talk about some shortcomings and some just general facts. Now, the Aug is a fairly lightweight rifle when it comes to a European 5.56 battle rifle. It comes in at about 7.3 to 7.6 pounds, depending on the barrel configuration. Now, this is of course heavier than your typical M4 of a similar barrel length. However, what's nice about bullpups is that the weight tends to sit towards the rear. So try not to hit my lapel mic right here. So when I have this guy shouldered, it has the tendency of all that weight to be back on my shoulder. This makes it very easy to both hold for long periods of time, and due to the compact size, makes it easy to maneuver in and around corners for combat, for urban combat, for CQC, all that good stuff. So as you can see, there's a lot of benefits to using a bullpup. However, they typically suffer from very bad triggers, and if you're not specifically trained well on them, the reloads can be a little bit more awkward. Now, personally me, I find them to be about roughly on par, or perhaps a little bit faster with some upgrades on the AUG or many bullpups, but it still needs to be talked about. So let's go back to the AUG here and let's talk about some other sets. It is a short stroke gas operated weapon, which means we have a small piston that actuates upon the op rod to drive the entire mechanism backwards. Now, the AUG has famously suffered from a few problems, namely suppression. It's done very poorly at that in the past, as well as a very, very bad trigger, and previously rail space. So let's talk about how the upgrades to the AUG have now made this perhaps a very compelling, maybe even a combat rifle that I would say can stand up to the AR-15 nowadays, which is saying quite a bit. So first off, let's talk about rail space. Now, the nice thing about the AUG is that the barrels are rapidly swappable. We have the original AUG barrel right here, excellently well made. cold hammer forge. I have nothing bad to say about this at all. However, in today's video, we are using the Heresy Designs 5.56 conversion. Now, it's not really a conversion, but they call it this because they have several different caliber conversions that you can change out on your AUG. You can switch it to 300 black, to 7.62 by 39, or 9mm, hence the conversion moniker. But what I really like about the Heresy Designs forward system is, one, the rail space, as well as the piston. The piston system adds a very easy and very well gassed plug right here that allows you to switch between 3 different modes, from all the way from a fully baffled suppressor to a flow-through suppressor to typical normal/adverse settings, so 3 settings. Now, I do have to point out that Canis Designs is also coming out with a really good suppressor piston setup that can fit right into the factory unit. So there are options there, but we're just showing you what we're using / what other people have used and are having very good luck with. So with the adjustable piston that you have on the Heresy Designs, it makes it a lot better, so it's functioning extremely well. I find that the recoil with this system is extremely nice and manageable, even with the suppressor. Previously, the AUG has suffered from a lot of piston pop, so as that piston's being driven back, it's going to bleed off any of that excess gas through a series of holes. The AUG has suffered due to the how close the piston is, or the gas opening is, to the end of the barrel. Some of that flame kind of coming out the piston, 1, showing up on night vision, and then 2, just kind of overall increasing the noise that you'd be hearing from a Steyr AUG even when suppressed. Now, in the case of this Heresy design, I haven't really noticed much at all piston pop. I'm sure it's still there, but I've gotten pretty used to the sound signature, and it's gotten a lot better compared to the factory unit. Now, when we move over to it, we of course have rail space at several different areas. And we'll talk about a few issues here, as well as things that they've done extremely well. So obviously we have rails at the 12, 3 o'clock, 6 o'clock, and 9 o'clock. Now, the 9 o'clock space, due to needing to clear the piston right here, is a shorter rail with 1 single hex screw keeping it in place. Now, you compare that to the other rails, they typically have 1 to 2, or they're somehow scalloped into the design as a whole. The problem is this short rail is a little bit weaker, so I've actually broken the side rail right here just due to the fact that it's simply 1 hex screw holding it in place rather than 2. This is a design weakness in my opinion, and it was something, it's probably my biggest nitpick with the system overall, but again, it is me nitpicking. It survived extremely well for 5 years. It just so happens while we're doing this review, it took a really hard hit and ended up breaking that little piece off. Now, Heresy Design immediately sent one, overnighted one right away through their customer service, and they were wonderful, had no bad things to say, but it's just something to be aware of. Now, another thing that we have to talk about is going to be the barrel. So compared to the Steyr Arms barrel, we have a American-made, domestically produced 4150 CMV barrel. Now, compared to a cold hammer forge, I of course do prefer a cold hammer forge barrel. That being said, 4150 CMV is a typical barrel steel that is used in the M4 carbine. And indeed, we were extremely surprised when we tested this with our accuracy testing. The AUG with the Heresy Design barrel printed easily 1.1 MOA, and with certain loads were printing just about on the 1 MOA mark. This is incredible for a combat rifle and extremely good for the Steyr Aug. Not that the Steyr Aug is an inherently inaccurate design, but rather I was simply impressed with the accuracy that we're seeing from this. And then we took this thing and shot it well out to 700 yards. We tried at 800, but I'm a little bit too retarded for that. And it did extremely well. Now, in the case of ours, we obviously have changed out the muzzle device. This is wearing a Surefire A2 because we're using mostly suppressors that use Surefire muzzle devices, but you can of course fit any type of muzzle device on here, and that goes to the Steyr Aug barrel as well. Now, we've talked a lot about the Heresy designs. Let's talk about what Steyr is also offering. So right here we have the Steyr Aug A3 M1. Now there is an M2 now, which is a newer variant, and it actually increases the amount of rail space, and it adds an extended M-lock handguard that is really, really well made. So if you're gonna go right now and want to buy an AUG, we would definitely recommend getting the A3 M2 if at all possible, unless there's a really compelling reason for you to get the M1, such as price or something along those lines. They're both really similar. I just think the upgrade with that extended handguard from Steyr is a really, really good design. If you don't have that or don't like that quite as much, the Heresy Designs is absolutely wonderful. And again, to kind of point it out once more, it is so easy to pull these barrels out. In fact, what was really cool for this video is we ended up talking to a lot of soldiers who have used the AUG in service to ask them about any issues that they ran into with the AUG, et cetera, et cetera. And one thing that they all pointed out was that they've all at some point used the barrel takedown feature to clear a malfunction very easily. This is pretty interesting, you know, coming from an M4, you know, I served in the military for 12 years, and with the M4, you can't easily swap out the barrel. It's just not something you can do. But if you had a stoppage of some type that was more difficult to get out and due to kind of trying to charge this thing in your shoulder, it kind of makes sense just running right up here, pressing the tab, pulling the whole barrel out and just dumping out those rounds and then continuing on like nothing ever happened. So that is a really cool note to make there. In addition, when we talk about the operating system about the Steyr Aug, the word I would use to describe the Steyr Aug would be unusually robust. This is a unusually robust, well-made rifle that is made to survive for a very long time. The big complaint we've seen with the AUG from soldiers who've used it is simply age. A lot of the AUGs being used are extremely old, but they've noted even on their AUGs with 100, 200,000 rounds that they're still running well. And again, I have run into a bunch of Austrian soldiers who are still running original barrels from like the 70s that are still printing well. This comes down to using a cold hammer forged barrel and just probably a reduced firing schedule, but still at 100 to 200K rounds, that's an insane amount. Now, as far as what parts typically break on an AUG, it really isn't much at all. If anything could possibly break, it could be the piston within the system, but even still, it tends to function. One member that again, all these soldiers who have given their opinion are still active duty, therefore we can't give credit to them, but we should all take a moment to thank all the Australian, New Zealander, Austrian soldiers who've talked to us about the Steyr Aug SCG-77/EF88. One soldier had his piston break as he was shooting. He didn't notice it until he took down the rifle and the piston came out in pieces. And he's like, oh, so he swapped in a new one and then of course nothing changed. But this rifle is extremely reliable. When we go back to the bolts, one thing that we have to talk about is on the bolt on the AUG and the bolt carrier system as a whole, it's a very over-engineered, extremely robust design. And on the actual locking pieces on the bolt itself, they're actually both wider and slightly thicker compared to an AR-15. This makes for a very reliable bolt. In all my time from talking to a bunch of Austrian soldiers, I have not yet met one who has broken one of the lugs off of their bolts. I'm sure it's happened, but it really speaks to the longevity of the weapon. Now, moving back to the operating system as a whole, obviously you have huge, very long op rods that drive down the entirety of the system all the way to the bolt carrier group. So let's take a look at those really quickly. Luckily, this is a ridiculously easy weapon to take down. And that makes our life just a tiny bit easier. All right. I love how that whole thing just kind of pops out. It's like, oh, you want your AUG? Here's your AUG, buddy. From here, we can take a look at the bolt carrier group. And you can see right here, we have our piston rod, which is on the right side. On the left side, we have the actuating rod for using the charging handle. Now, coming over to the bolt right here, you can see how long those lugs are and how thick they are. It is just a very well-designed system. And you can see a lot of wear on the, well, not a whole lot of wear, but you can see wear on the bolt carrier right here. This weapon has been shot quite a bit. But despite that, I haven't noted much, if any, wear on the actual bolt itself. Just a phenomenally well-designed thing. I can probably quit it at this point, but I just want to point out just how good of a rifle this is if you're looking for a good infantryman's rifle. Now, it's not going to fit everybody's kind of need for what they want, because certainly in many ways the AR-15 is an easier design to shoot. Many people find the bullpup to be a little bit awkward. The AR-15 is an incredibly robust, reliable, accurate weapon system with tons of replacement parts. You compare that to the AUG, it's going to be a little bit harder to get your replacement parts, so that might be one thing that can kind of hold you up there. Now, let's kind of walk down our AUG here. We still have the Corvus Defensio charging handle right here. If you're unfamiliar with them, Corvus Defensio makes a lot of products for the European AUG market, and they're very well regarded. Another piece that we had from them that we had to get rid of was the shell deflector. So when it comes to the AUG can actually be configured to shoot both right or left-handed. That's a good one for you to know, Sawyer.
Yeah, I got smacked in the face with a shell. After you told me, oh, it's fine, it has a shell deflector, you'll be fine.
That's life, man. Tim from Military Arms Channel has a great video on that. But this can obviously be swapped. It's not a hot swappable unit where you can just kind of do it on the fly. Like the ARX-160 from Italy, you can just easily change the ejection pattern on that guy. And this guy, you have to get a different bolt to be able to swap the sides, but if you're left-handed, that's something you should probably invest in. So understand that this is swappable. It's just, if you're gonna be swapping shoulders while firing, you're just gonna be eating some of that gas and some of that brass directly to your face. So moving back from there, obviously on the top rail right here, we do have the LCAN Spectre. On a bullpup, I find that the LCAN Spectre is just phenomenal due to the ease of getting the eye relief on this particular unit. I just absolutely love that. Now, moving back here, one thing that we have to talk about is just how good the weapon looks as a whole. It's a very futuristic design that somehow is still looking cool even today. And if we kind of look at one of the great kind of parts of this rifle that's been a problem, that's been the trigger itself. So let's take a moment, let's take a look at the trigger, and let's talk about it. So first off, the AUG trigger from the factory sucks. It's bad. It's very bad. I'm not gonna sugarcoat that. It's probably one of the worst bullpup triggers out there, which is a crying shame because, man, everything else about this rifle is so good. So let's go ahead and pop the safety off. Feel that trigger in mind? Okay, we have about a millimeter play. We have a let off. That was about 4 pounds. Oh, look at that reset. Whew. Yeah, about 3 to 4 pounds right there. That is nice. So the question is, what the hell did we do to our AUG? What kind of magic did we do to make this work? Well, this is, again, the small market coming with solutions to the AUG. Obviously, the AUG was made to be insanely drop safe. Now, even still, with the safety on and our upgraded trigger, it's still absolutely fine. It's just not meeting the crazy military requirements that probably just aren't necessary for you. So we are using a Ratwork sear on ours along with the aired trigger parts, and we have a couple different springs that we played with. Honestly, putting in the Ratwork sear, not changing any springs at all, actually did a ton to lighten up the trigger pull. So that's something that we can't recommend enough. There are multiple companies that do make their own sears, their own trigger parts. This is going to be something where you're going to have to find a trigger that feels really good to you. Obviously, you guys know what we're using at this point, but there's a lot of really good companies, and I don't want to shortchange any of them. It just so happens that this is a trigger we've been running in ours because we've been doing a multi-year long evaluation process on this upgraded rifle. And in the case of ours, it's run absolutely solid the last 3, 4, 5 years. So I really can't say enough good things about this setup. Now, moving back from there, obviously we have the magazine release. Now, we're going to take a moment to talk about mags for a moment, but let's talk a little bit about manual of arms. So, obviously, when the last round is fired, if you're running your typical non-NATO spec AUG, which means it runs the actual AUG mags rather than Steyr AR-15 mags, you go dry, it's going to lock back. So when you do your reload, it's as simple as getting that next mag in, and then hitting that bolt release right there. On the NATO version, you have to run the charging handle. Not that big of a deal. Let's talk about the magazines, which are actually extremely, extremely well made, and you actually have a lot of options. So again, talking to our Austrian soldiers, same thing. One thing that they've noted is that as the plastic gets old, it breaks, it becomes brittle, and it shatters. So on these guys who have been using these mags that are from the 70s and 80s, well, they're certainly having some embrittlement problems on their magazines, and that was one of their big complaints. Now, if you're buying a magazine within the last 20 years, it's not going to be a problem. Just understand that magazines are a wear item. Even running a Magpul mag, if it was made in the 70s or 80s, you're probably going to get degradation. I have a Glock Gen 2, and through all the years of torture and abuse, it's begun to crumble and fall apart at the bottom of the heel of the plastic base right there. So understand that plastic does have kind of a shelf life, and there's nothing different on mags. So just make sure you have a lot of mags, stack them deep. They're not very expensive. And in addition to using your typical military looking mags, these waffle mags right here, you have another option. Magpul also makes a really good Steyr Aug mag. Oh, so this is a Steyr Aug mag from Magpul. This thing is extremely well made. Obviously, the waffles, you can see all the rounds on the Magpul mag. You have the follower that lets you know what your ammo levels at. I love these quite a bit. I would definitely recommend getting you some of the Magpul mags, and they just look good in the gun as well. The biggest problem with the AUG is probably going to be the fact that there's no length of pull. It's a bullpup. The VHS / the Springfield Halion does have an adjustable length of pull, but many of your bullpups just don't. So it's either going to work for you, it's not going to work for you. My dude's 5'9" and above, so 5'9", 6'2", 6'3". This gun's going to feel good for you. For any shorter or any taller, it might be a little bit too short or long for you, depending on what type of orangutan, length arms you have. So understand that. But, kind of wrapping it up here at the end, the one thing that we have to say is that with the upgrades that we have on this, mostly within trigger, barrel, ergonomics, you have a very, very good fighting rifle. I really can't say enough good things about how the AUG has kind of come along since kind of the first review that we did, and it's only been, a few short 5 years at this point. This rifle is both soft shooting, reliable, with repeatable and excellent accuracy, easily engaging targets out to 600. In the video, when we were gauging out to 550, that was, and 600, that was literally nothing. That was super duper easy. One note that we do have to make is that the Heresy design barrel is a 1 in 8 twist. This is fine up to 77 grain. Just understand your very heavier pills, it's probably not ideal for, but I don't really know anybody shooting anything over 77 grains unless it's out of a bolt action. So leave that what it may be. But we have the AUG. Compared to the AR-15, I would say you could go either way so long as you have backup parts. And man, you have a very good, very robust combat rifle that is made to survive in any environment, from Australia to Austria. Funny enough, they have different environments despite being really close in name. If you have the AUG, you're not going to feel outgunned with it. Guys, thank you so much for watching. We got nothing else for you. Final thing for you guys is going to be dad advice. Of course, the dad advice for today is going to be, you know what? Guns are cool. Make sure you have a gun that you can defend yourself and fight your freedom, but financial security as well. Make sure that you're not in a ton of debt, because if you're trying to bank on the end of the world to clear your debts, well, people have been doing that for a long time, and it hasn't really worked out. So make sure that you're being financially prudent while being able to defend yourself. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for watching. We got nothing else for you. Don't forget the Patreon. It is out of control, and we love all you guys getting to Patreon. Go check them out.
What were you trying to get me to translate? I was like daydreaming. And
I said we're gonna make our own rifle. I'm like, how would the Germans say that?
Oh fuck, it's been 10 years.
Be like,
Waffen? I don't know.
good enough for me.